All right, so have you ever been like scrolling through those car websites and you get this weird feeling like, wait a minute, didn't I just see that car but with a totally different logo on it?
Yeah,
It's like you're seeing double almost.
it can be pretty wild.
Well, my friends could be badge engineering in action, and it's way more relevant to your UPSC prep than you might think.
You know what's really interesting about this whole thing is how it ties directly back to the economics of the auto industry, which, as we all know, is a big deal in the UPSC syllabus.
Huge.
I mean, think about it. We're talking about companies basically sharing car platforms, sometimes even entire models.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
Definitely. And it has big implications for competition, innovation, even consumer behavior stuff that can pop up in both the prelims and the mains exams.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're not just talking about fancy cars here. This
Yeah,
stuff gets into industrial policy, the nitty-gritty of how this whole industry works.
exactly.
So for all you UPSC aspirants out there, listen up because this is gold.
It really is. Now just imagine this for a second. One company gets a completely ready-made car, saving them a ton of time and money on research and development. Right. Meanwhile, the other company gets to slide right into a brand new market segment that they maybe couldn't reach before.
Smooth.
Yeah, win-win, right?
Well, not always.
Not always. Okay, so that's what makes this so fascinating, because there's so many different angles to this.
Definitely.
And we've got some really cool examples to unpack today.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be talking about everything from the good old Hindustan Motors ambassador, which
Yeah.
is like the poster child for badge engineering in India,
Oh, yeah. Classic.
to this rebadged Tata that totally bombed in the UK. It's a cautionary tale for sure.
It really shows you that there's more to this than meets the eye.
So let's break this whole badge engineering thing down.
Yeah.
What it is, how it works, and why it matters,
Hmm.
especially if you're aiming for those top UPSC scores. Sounds good. To really kick things off, we need to define what badge engineering actually is. Because it's not as simple as just like switching out the logo and calling it a day.
Right. It's got to be more than that.
Way more. Think shared platforms, engines, transmissions, even the whole design sometimes.
Okay, but then how do the brands stay different way? Like if I'm dropping serious cash on a luxury car, I don't want it to feel like I'm driving a budget model with a fancy hood ornament.
That's where the different levels of rebadging come in.
Okay.
Think of it like a spectrum. Sometimes it's as basic as just swapping the badge. Other times you'll see companies going all out with customization, different grills, headlights, interiors enough to give each brand its own look and feel and target a specific type of buyer.
So not every badge engineered car is created equal. Got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some are definitely more engineered than others.
All right, history buffs out there. Time for a top quiz. When do you think this whole badge engineering thing started? Was it like a recent trend?
Oh, not at all. Yeah, this General Motors was already doing this back in 1909.
Try.
They were swapping chassis between brands like it was nothing.
Whoa, hold on. They were badge engineering when cars were practically a luxury item themselves.
Exactly. They had GMC trucks turning into Chevrolet's platforms, hopping between Oakland, Oldsmobile, Buick, even Cadillac.
Wow, talk about ahead of their time.
It just goes to show how efficient this strategy can be, especially back then when you imagine the cost of having to reinvent the wheel for every single brand.
It's like the early days of economies of scale in action.
Precisely. And speaking of which, this is a perfect example for our UPSC folks to keep in mind.
Right.
This isn't just some fun fact about car history, it's an economic concept playing out in the real world.
Love it. Okay, so let's bring this home now.
Let's do it.
What about the Hindustan Motors ambassador? The
Ah,
legend itself.
yes. The Ambassador. This car was basically a rebadged Morris Oxford Series 3rd, produced for over 50 years in India. Talk about a textbook case of badge engineering, adapting a successful car to a new market.
And it wasn't just any car, right?
Nope.
The ambassador was an icon. It was like part of the fabric of India.
Absolutely. But here's the thing. Not every badge engineered car is a guaranteed hit.
True that. And remember that rebadged Tata we mentioned earlier, the Rover City Rover? Oof, that one did not go well.
Yeah, that was a rough one. The original Tata Indica was doing great in India, but when they decided to rebadge it for the UK market and call it the City Rover disaster,
Wait, so same car, one's a smash hit, the other's a total flop. How is that even possible?
it's wild, right? It just goes to show you that there's a lot more to badge engineering than just slapping a new logo on and hoping for the best.
Right. There's got to be more to the story.
Definitely. Things like market dynamics, consumer perception, even what people in different countries are looking for, these all play a huge role. And that's where analyzing these cases becomes so valuable for the UPSC.
Absolutely.
We're not just memorizing facts, we're understanding how the forces of economics really work.
Okay, so we've got the what and a little bit of the when of badge engineering down. But the big question is why? Why would companies even bother with this whole thing in the first place?
Yeah.
So we just left off talking about why companies would even get into this whole badge engineering thing.
Right.
On the surface, it seems kind of like they're just sharing cars.
Yeah.
Which sounds all friendly and collaborative. But what's the real deal here? What's the motive?
Well, the most straightforward answer is cost efficiency.
Okay.
And this is a concept you'll definitely come across in your UPSC economics prep.
Yeah.
Think about it. The auto industry, it really thrives on economies of scale.
Right.
So if you can spread that massive cost of developing a new platform, a new engine, sometimes even an entire car across multiple brands, it brings the price down for everyone involved.
So manufacturers save money.
Yeah.
That's a win. But what about us regular folks, the people actually buying these cars?
Yeah.
Does badge engineering actually affect what we decide to buy?
You bet it does. And this is where things get really interesting, even from a psychological standpoint.
Oh, really?
A badge isn't just a logo, it's a symbol.
Right.
It represents a whole set of ideas about quality, reliability, luxury. And companies know...
They're playing on our perceptions, for sure.
Exactly. Badge engineering lets them tap into those existing perceptions and sometimes even charge a premium for a car that shares a lot with its maybe less prestigious sibling.
Okay, but that seems kind of risky, right?
Yeah.
What if the shared platform has problems? Wouldn't that hurt both brands?
Yeah.
It's like putting all your eggs in one basket.
That's a valid point, for sure. And it really highlights how important due diligence is for any company thinking about using this strategy. They need to be totally confident in the shared technology because if it fails, it could backfire on multiple brands.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a gamble for sure. This reminds me of the ambassador example we were talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
If the original Morris Oxford had been a poorly designed car, the ambassador's reputation would tank too, right?
Absolutely. It's a calculated risk, but with a potentially massive payoff.
High risk, high reward situation.
Exactly. And when it works, it can be incredibly effective. Take a look at how Maruti Suzuki uses badge engineering to target those higher-end segments.
Okay.
For example, the Invicto. It's essentially a rebadged Toyota Innova Hi-Cross.
Oh, interesting.
This lets Maruti Suzuki compete in a market where they haven't traditionally been very strong.
Makes sense.
And on the other side of the coin, you've got Toyota, known for their quality, but maybe not always known for being super affordable. And now they can target those more budget-conscious buyers through rebadged Maruti Suzuki cars.
So they're both getting something out of this.
Exactly. It's like they're filling the gaps in each other's portfolios.
I like that, filling the gaps.
Yeah. And this is a key takeaway for our UPSC aspirants out there. Understanding how companies use strategies like badge engineering to reach their goals. It's not just about building cars. It's about market positioning, competition, maximizing profits. It's all happening within this really complex economic landscape.
So much more than meets the eye. But hold on. If companies are just rebadging existing cars, are they even innovating?
That's a great question, and it's a debate we need to have.
Okay.
Because there are definitely arguments out there that badge engineering could stifle innovation. If companies get too comfortable just sharing, are they going to stop pushing the boundaries of technology and design?
It's kind of like the difference between writing your own essay versus copying someone else's.
Exactly.
Sure, you might get a decent grade, but are you really learning anything?
Exactly. And in the long run, that could really hurt the industry as a whole. But let's not forget that badge engineering is just one tool in the company's toolbox.
Right.
The companies that are serious about innovation, they're going to keep investing in research and development. They're going to keep coming up with new technologies and designs.
And even with shared platforms, there's still room for them to make each car unique, right?
Absolutely. Those little tweaks to the design, the special features, the way each brand presents the car to the market.
It's not just a copy-paste job.
No, not at all. And that leads us to a whole other level of collaboration platform sharing. This goes beyond just slapping on a new badge. We're talking about companies working together to develop a platform from the ground up, and then they use that platform for different cars.
So it's like they're building the foundation together.
Exactly.
But then each brand gets to build their own unique house on top of it.
I like that analogy. What are some good examples of this in India?
Yeah, are there any?
The Hyundai-Kia partnership is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Think about the Hyundai Creta and the Kia Seltos, or the Hyundai Venue and the Kia Sonnet. They all share platforms and a lot of key components.
Yeah, but they look totally different.
Right. They might be built on the same foundation, but they feel like completely different cars.
Interesting. And that's the point, right?
Exactly. And here's the really fascinating part. Even though they're collaborating so closely, Hyundai and Kia are still fierce competitors.
Really?
They're constantly trying to outdo each other in terms of sales features, everything. It's a constant battle.
Wow. So they're partners and rivals at the same time.
Exactly. And that's a super valuable insight for the UPSC exam. It shows that even in today's globalized, interconnected economy, competition is still the driving force. Collaboration and competition can exist together even within the same partnership.
That's a great point for sure. But now for the big question. What happens when badge engineering goes wrong? Because we've seen with the City Rover example, it doesn't always work out.
Yeah, that's true. Not every partnership is a success story.
So we talked about all the different sides of badge engineering, the good, the bad, the complicated. Now let's get into some real-world examples that really bring these concepts to life. And trust me, these cases aren't just some random car trivia. They're packed with insights that anyone studying economics and business, especially with the UPSC in mind, should pay attention to.
Absolutely. Let's kick things off with a real success story, one that's super relevant to the Indian market. The partnership between Toyota and Maruti Suzuki. This is a prime example of badge engineering done right.
Yeah, we touched on this a little earlier, but it's worth taking a closer look. Maruti Suzuki, they've got that strong presence in the mass market, but they get to tap into Toyota's reputation for quality and reliability, which helps them move into those higher-end segments. But it's got to be more than just borrowing a badge, right?
Ooh, it's definitely more than just a badge swap. This is a strategic alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Toyota also gets something out of it. They benefit from Maruti Suzuki's massive distribution network and their cost-effective manufacturing here in India. This means that they can offer more affordable models and appeal to a much wider customer base.
So both companies are winning here.
Exactly.
And they're saving money by sharing platforms and technology. It's a win-win right out of an economics textbook.
It really is. It's like they're using each other's strengths to fill those gaps in their portfolios.
Love it. Okay, so it's strategic. It's not random.
Right.
They're picking specific segments where they want to grow and using badge engineering as a way to get there faster. Pretty smart. But as we talked about before, not every partnership goes this smoothly. Let's look at one that didn't quite hit the mark. Renault and Nissan.
Yeah. Their attempt at badge engineering offers some valuable lessons for sure. Remember the Nissan Terrano? It was a rebadged Renault Duster. And then there was the Renault Scala based on the Nissan Sunny. Neither of them really made a splash.
They kind of just faded into the background. What happened there? Was it just bad timing, or were there some bigger problems?
I think a big factor was that they didn't do enough to make the cars different.
Really?
Yeah, the Terrano and the Scala were almost identical to the cars they were based on.
Oh, so people could tell.
Yeah, just a few minor cosmetic changes. Consumers could see that they were basically buying the same car. And often at a similar price, there wasn't a compelling reason to choose the rebadged version.
So badge engineering has to be more than just a name change. It has to offer something unique. Maybe a special feature, a different design, a better price. Something that makes people actually want the rebadged model.
Exactly. It's about creating a separate identity and giving the rebadged car its own value proposition. Otherwise, it just feels like a marketing trick.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about those cars that seem to be totally off limits for badge engineering? Like the Suzuki Swift or the Toyota Innova? Any ideas why those haven't been touched?
That's a great question. I think it might be because those models are so closely tied to their brand's identity.
That's like they're the heart and soul of the brand.
Exactly. They've got this strong legacy, a loyal following, a unique personality. It would be really tough to capture that under a different badge.
Rebadging them could actually backfire, hurt the brand.
Yeah, it's a big risk. The potential downsides might outweigh any benefits. What about when luxury brands try badge engineering? Does that always work out?
No.
We talked about the Aston Martin Signet and the Audi 50 earlier. Those weren't exactly success stories.
Yeah, those were some interesting cases. It really shows how important brand alignment is. Trying to market a rebadged Toyota IQ as an Aston Martin just didn't click with people. The Signet felt way too expensive and totally out of sync with Aston Martin's image of high-performance luxury sports cars.
It's like trying to sell a cheap plane ticket and calling it first class.
People see right through it. And the Audi 50, even though it was based on the popular VW Polo, it just couldn't capture that premium feel that Audi buyers expect. It's a good reminder that you can't just slap a luxury badge on an ordinary car and expect it to magically transform into something fancy.
Badge engineering, when it's done well, is all about understanding consumer psychology, knowing what makes the market tick, and picking up on those little cues that influence what people decide to buy. It's way more than just changing a logo.
So to wrap things up, badge engineering, it's a complex strategy with a long history, and it's definitely not going away anytime soon. We've seen how powerful it can be for cutting costs, expanding into new markets, and forming strategic partnerships.
But it's not a guaranteed recipe for success. It takes careful planning, a deep understanding of brands and markets, and a value proposition that really resonates with consumers.
And as the auto industry keeps evolving with electric vehicles and autonomous driving, the whole game of badge engineering is going to change too. It's a topic worth keeping an eye on, especially for anyone prepping for the UPSC, because it reflects bigger trends in economics, business, and globalization.
And for all our listeners out there hitting the books, remember, badge engineering isn't just about cars. It's a microcosm of all the forces shaping the global economy. So take a deep dive into the examples we talked about, analyze them, think critically, connect them to those broader economic concepts. That's how you take knowledge and turn it into understanding. And that's what's going to help you stand out in those exams.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your fellow UPSC enthusiasts. We'll be back with more deep dives into fascinating topics that matter, helping you connect the dots and ace those exams. Until then, happy studying.